Hey, good afternoon all. So today we have my former boss and CTO of GenAI and security at Pure Storage, Ratinder. So Ratinder, thanks for taking time to talk to us. If you can please describe your current role and the experience in this industry.
Mhm. Sure. So, hi, I'm Ratinder, CTO for Security and GenAI at Pure Storage. Prior to joining this role at Pure Storage, I have done a number of startups. My first startup got acquired by Cisco, second acquired by Extreme Networks, the third one acquired by McAfee, where that was Reconic, so the pioneer data loss prevention, where we work with you. So that's a long time ago, certainly. And then after that, I started another company called Shiftlift Networks, which was acquired by Fortinet. So that's been my journey. And currently, I'm also on the board of another startup, chairman of the board for a company called DenScribe, which is doing dental documentation using generative AI.
Cool. Thanks, Ratinder. And I think you are being pretty. You are telling very less. It's like you have like so much hundreds of patents and a lot more to your portfolio. It's pretty strong technical expertise there. So as you see, right? So GenAI adoption has been increasing like pretty strongly. So and this looks like a very big. I would say there are a couple of revolutions that has been in industry, like industrial revolution. I would say when everything was from manual labor to became like automated, and the second one was when the internet came into picture, and now AI looks like the next revolution. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is the growth that we'll be seeing, that like what we saw in other revolution, or this will look like a hype or just like a short-lived thing?
No, so I think so now AI has evolved over last 2 or 3 decades. If you look back, it started off as statistical methods, then it became a little bit more formal, and the term data mining was coined, which looked for statistically significant patterns in large volumes of data, and we found some patterns. This then further led to more advancement, and the data science term came along. And so there's this technology has been around and evolving for many years, and it's used in many places for clustering and classification type work. So now what generative AI has done is it has come up with a methodology to be able to statistically predict how to complete sentences. And it draws from the large volume of knowledge base, the entire internet or any corpus of data. And so it's a slightly different way to produce content, and this has a lot of value, right? So clearly, and what is also different now is many times we've seen trends come and go, and even the trends that got established, like the cloud. When you remember when 20 years ago, when cloud first came along, it was considered a fad. A lot of enterprises were like, it's a fad, it's going to go away. And people are not serious. But this time, what you see is all the large players investing billions in the space. It's squeezing out, new entrants because the large players are spending billions of it. And they're doing it because there's almost an immediate ROI that you can achieve. So, so clearly, there is value and applications to be delivered on top of large language models, and that's where we are right now.
Cool. Yeah. So as you see, right? So whenever any new thing comes, and AI has been there for long, right? Pretty long. But the surge that we have seen in past, it has been a couple of years where the like spike came, where like Nvidia grew from like 100, but like 20, 30, 40 times every minute. It's growing very fast and became like the biggest company in the world. So with that surge coming, and there are a lot of adoption going on, everybody, as you say, everybody putting billions of dollars, and things are going on to make GenAI tools or LLM application, blah blah. So now when this adoption is going, there are a lot of things that we are missing out, like security is the major thing. So what are the most significant risks that you are seeing are coming with this surge of adoption in GenAI?
Yeah. So clearly, the number one risk for this technology is, how do you make it enterprise class? So, for example, we're building solutions for business departments of finance. and you can't have a solution that is unpredictable. And LLMs by their nature are statistical beasts, and they're not predictable. So so that is the challenge for enterprise adoption. How do you make this reliable in the function that it does? So there are some applications where variations don't matter. For example, if you're just summarizing text, creating summaries from large volumes of data, it doesn't matter what the sentence looks like because it is semantically the same. However, if you're building a financial app where if the evaluation says, yes or no, and it makes a difference, then now that's very critical. So I think that is the number one problem to be solved, to make sure GenAI can be made consistent in these applications. And then once that is done, then you have the security problem. Now, security, if you look at GenAI applications, right? And if I just didn't use the term GenAI and I said, here is the magical database that gives you answers. You query it, it gives you answers, right? And we said, build your client server elastically scaling solution with the front end, and you know how to build that. You have large teams that can quickly put that together. And to secure that, you would follow standard DevSecOps type of patterns, and you say, how do I secure an elastically scaling multi-tier application? We know how to do that, right? And then you say, well, this database has some peculiarities. You're sending something to it, you're receiving something back from it, you're presenting that back to the user. So now this brings in elements of data classification. So those paths where after you've done your DevSecOps and you've hardened your deployment and you've done all the access control and authentication authorization, and then you have data to deal with. And now this sort of brings us back to the data loss prevention days, where the data that is coming back and forth has to be understood. So it becomes a classification problem to begin with, and you have to match what is coming in and out with what the business requirements were. So if you're building a solution for HR, they need to say, well, is it is the data that is being sent by the user, is that related to HR in any way? Or are you asking for movies and completely irrelevant things, right? Similarly, the responses coming back, are they related? So you classify all of this, right? So so it is a data classification problem, and having policies along with that classification. Now, the second closely related problem is, yes, it is HR. It's not telling you about movies or music, but is it the right answer? So this is you could call it a security problem, but this is a correctness problem. And the compensation for that is there are evaluation frameworks, which you have to essentially run against with your prompt and the context of the LLM and see, are you 99.9% there? And if you're not, these evaluation frameworks help you tune both the context, the prompt, and perhaps the LLM to get you there. So I think it's important to differentiate between infrastructure security, which is bread and butter, and the security of the data going back and forth at the GenAI application layer, and then lastly the correctness of the data. So that's how you want to break it down.
Got it. Cool. So if you see, right, as you said, first of all, as soon as the internet came, security was just followed it, so that, okay, internet came and security should be there as part of it, the whole internet adoption. Same as you see, AI has been there for long. So, and security also has been for long. So there are already security solutions which are built in, which are saving, or some, like you only founded a company in 2003, Reckonix, which was focused on data security, right? There's been more than 20 years now. And so what do you think that those solutions which were built keeping that thing in mind will be sufficient enough to meet the surge or meet the changing needs right now, what general adoption is bringing?
So the concepts definitely will apply. How do you, for example, let's go back to classification, right? So if you remember, we did classification using keywords, dictionaries, which is a collection of keywords, right? Something that we had a patent on called concepts, which was applying mathematical, properties to clusters of dictionaries, right? Yeah, so you could say a credit card plus something else, and they have to be within certain distance and so forth, right? And then you had regular expressions, combinations of all of these, and then lastly, something that we invented called fingerprinting. So these were ways to classify content. So now in the world of LLMs, you would say, could we do it differently, right? Could we, use the LLMs themselves as classification systems? And now you have a lot of trade-offs to do, right? So one is you can use the LLMs, and that is a simple answer. Yes, you quickly send a thing, say, hey, does it look like PHI? And you don't have to worry about defining what PHI is. Maybe you could do some in-context training if you want to say, hey, here is what PHI looks like. Does it match? On the other hand, but the trade-off would be, if you remember when we did data loss prevention at network speeds, a gigabit per second, you had to have very finely tuned in-memory pattern matching engines and policy engines to achieve that, right? LLMs may not achieve the line rate in that way. So I think those are the trade-offs. There will definitely be places where you would use the LLM for classification, and in other cases you have to build custom classifiers.
Got it. So, what are the key challenges that you see in integrating GenAI with existing security frameworks like data security, like DLP engines, or many other?
Yeah. So I think if you look at OpenAI Enterprise, they have started to offer hooks into traditional data loss prevention systems, hooks into traditional security frameworks. So they have integrations with Zscaler, for example. You'll see the SASE, edge security companies enhance their URL classification and inspection capabilities to start looking inside GenAI flows, right? So I mean, if you said, hey, there's a SaaS application here, I'm accessing via browser, and if I didn't tell you this was OpenAI, was some of the SaaS service, you would come up with, using SASE, you would come up with a mechanism to try to protect it, or with an endpoint solution or a browser plugin. Right? So there are a number of solutions today now, right? So you would look at it that way and say, would that work? Now, eventually you'll come to the same problem saying, okay, great, I can inspect it. If you tell me that this should not have credit card information, we can protect that. But the answers that are coming back, right? DLP did not address that. It did not address the fact that, is this the right flow or not? Is this the right answer coming back or not? That's outside where DLP used to be. So this is where you would have to then come up with an enhancement to say, what is the results correct?
Got it. So, as you also mentioned, right? So it's not only about the security, but it's was the correctness of the and relevance of the data that is getting spitted by. If you ask some question to a LLM application, what is the correctness factor into that? So, means a related question to that. So, how do you ensure the ethical use of GenAI in security, particularly concerning about the biasness and the privacy aspect, right? Or correctness also is a part of correctness, right? So if your answer is biased on something.
Yeah. So I think so the bias concept. So there's a number of ways to address this. So first is in the training of the systems themselves. So when you're training a large language model or some AI or a classifier, you have to say, am I in, for example, if you took, let's say you took music data, and during the classification, you labeled it, during the supervised learning, you labeled it movies instead of music. Yeah, the classifier is going to learn it that way, right? So you introduced some bias that way, right? Or you may say, I prefer, a certain class of music, and that's to be called good, and other music to be called bad, right? So you're now introducing bias into the classifiers. So that's one place where you have to, the integrity of the data pipeline has to be controlled. So that's the training side problem, right? So now you assume you've solved that, and you have a system that classifies correctly. And now you have the problem of saying, my prompt and the context and the LLM's training, seem to misfire, and it gives me something out of bounds. So this is where the evaluation frameworks, where you basically are testing the combination of the prompt and the context of the LLM to ensure that these things work. So the evaluations sort of go through this. There's 5 different ways to do evaluations, and you iterate through this till this works, right? And then, of course, you still need runtime checks to make sure that even though you say, okay, my evaluations are telling me everything is working, something changes, and now you're out of bounds again. So you have to runtime checks as well.
Got it. Got it. So you have been in on the other side of the place where you are developing. You have developed a lot of security companies, 4 companies, and took it to like full into on the security base. So you were the guy who was producing those companies, and now you are on leading the whole GenAI at security at Pure Stage, which comes like a kind of a consumer side of those type of application. So what and you have seen both the sides, right? So what strategies do you recommend to organizations and enterprises so that they can stay ahead of these new AI attacks or new attacks coming with this GenAI adoption?
Yeah. So enterprises that are building solutions, so the advice to them would be first to make sure that what you're trying to solve is actually a GenAI problem to be solved, right? And not shoehorning everything into saying, let's use GenAI to solve this, where it could be solved just by statistical methods. So that's one, making sure the ROI is there before you embark on this. So there's a bit, Gartner's published a really good matrix on saying, when do you decide to use GenAI to solve a certain problem, right? So assuming you've done all that, then the next challenge is you have to understand the business process that you're trying to build an agent for, right? So let's say you're building something for finance or manufacturing or legal or contract, all the contract management. So they all these and these business departments have a certain workflow, and they have rules. Certain, when one of those experts looks at a document, he has tribal knowledge and experience, which says, this is okay or not okay. Now, if you have to train a AI agent to do that, you have to get that out of their tribal knowledge and documents into sort of essentially heuristics and prompts and context, right? So I think that's the next place where enterprises should focus on saying, how do you truly understand how your finance department works? So whatever department is trying to take advantage of GenAI, how do they actually work? And how do we distill that knowledge from the subject matter experts through the agentic workflows and make sure there's not a gap there? Right. And so now and only after that, then you say, okay, now let's think about security. And still you're not building it, you're still designing it with security, and then you're going on and building.
Got it. So this question is also like somewhat similar to what we discussed. So what are the different advancements that you see are the, as you said, right? We should not really just use GenAI for sake of just using it, but we need to see if this is like, it can be helped solved with heuristic or whatever statistics thing, right? Rather than using GenAI. So what are the different things that you are thinking, or at places where you are thinking the GenAI is really required or is making really good advancement, and what we should do to make safe use of those enablements? Like, okay.
So the broad category we try to put things into is saying, so first we come to a conclusion that yes, we should use GenAI for this. And then GenAI is good at either, so end of the day, GenAI is good at summarizing content, right? You give it input and it munches and transforms it into another form. And it is also good at generating code to solve problem, right? So if you say, hey, I have 5 million lines of logs, I wanted to go find the problem. So that's not a good GenAI use case. GenAI would say, I can write the code to help you do anomaly detection, and that's a better way to use GenAI, right? So that's how you bucketize the thing. Is this something, for example, but on the other hand, if you just had a contract and you said, hey, does this contract match my terms and conditions? Now, GenAI is good at that. It'll say, great, I can semantically understand, the words in the document. I can stem the words. I can find semantic equivalence against your terms and conditions and give you what matches and what doesn't match. Perfect application for GenAI. On the other hand, like I said, if you had 5 million log lines, it would say, yeah, I can generate the code. I can give you the algorithm and the code to do what you want to do, right? So that's how you want to think about how to use GenAI.
Cool. So, as you see, right now, all the major things comes into a CISO role, which takes care of the security aspects of any enterprise. So, what are the apart from this are the things what GenAI should be used, but what current cybersecurity expert needs to be ready with or equipped with, apart when some tools or some knowledge or whatever, to just fight or just be ready for the new security threats that are coming with GenAI adoption?
Yeah. So I'm a proponent of the Shiftlift strategy, and so if you want to improve the security posture of anything, I follow DevSecOps methodology with a Shiftlift strategy. And the DevSecOps methodology, and you can look at Peer Student blogs, we published what we do. So it's a 6-point plan that we incorporate. It starts off by the first 3 phases are all about design to build. So it starts off by threat modeling everything. Any code that after threat modeling you design is hardened, then you write code. Code goes to code scanning. So all that is cleaned up, no vulnerability to the code. And then it goes through the CI/CD build. We want to harden the CI/CD build pipelines, make sure there's all secrets are properly managed, everything is signed. We go through security training for all developers so they understand what typical security mistakes engineers make. And then what is now built goes through pen testing. If you're deploying in the cloud, then your cloud environment itself has to be hardened as per the CIS benchmarks or the best practices by from Azure. So it's a hardened deployment, and then you have to have point 6, which is what we call operate with security, which means you have to have a set of security controls, boundary controls, endpoint controls, cloud security posture management. So this is how we do secure development, right? So the entire life cycle of secure development. Now, for example, if you were exposing an API, that brings in API security. So your code scanning tools are looking at API, or during deployment, you're looking at the OWASP top 10 for APIs. You're putting together an API gateway, and right, that's how you're securing something that is APIs. If you have web app, similarly, it fits into this model. Now, if you're using GenAI, then DevSecOps covers 99% of it, right? And then the 1% is the data being produced and the that data security. Now I'm separating out security of data versus the correctness of data. So security of data would mean we don't want to business requirements say any PII, PCI should be masked, right? We never want that to be going anywhere. It should be masked, and so that is a data security requirement, right? It doesn't, data security is not going to say, oh, is it the correct credit card number or the social security number? That's a separate problem, right? So that's how you're going to separate out security and correctness. And you also want to understand that if you just say, oh, I'm going to do GenAI security and you forget everything else, then you have a vulnerable system and you're only looking at data security at the very top, and it's pointless.
Got it. So we talked about like what a CISO needs to keep in mind, but how about what a company like Swift Security, which is trying to focus on GenAI security space, how to secure GenAI applications on. So what is the main thing that you give as advice to companies like us to focus on when we are developing solutions focused on GenAI?
Yeah, so I think so the challenge for companies introducing security solution is where do they want to intersect this, right? So if you draw a GenAI security template, GenAI application template, what does it look like, right? And you'll see 90% of the components look like any other pattern, right? So now there's no value in you trying to go fix those because there's other solutions that do that. So then you would say, okay, great. Now we are left with what is the data policy, both on security and correctness side, right? And that's what you would focus on. So especially so basically you are inspecting flows going to the GenAI application, data flows from the GenAI application to the LLM back and forth, and then whatever output gets produced. So all that has to be subjected to data security policy.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Ratinder. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your time today. It was really pretty knowledgeable discussion here, and really appreciate you giving us time to us. Thank you.
Great. Hopefully this was useful. And
yeah, totally.
You guys.